Hey, this is Chris from Rox Speed FX. I'm going to show you something we did very specific to the Africa Twin, a new accessory part. It features actually the front fender. I know a lot of guys out there are having some issues with the spacing of the fender between the fender and the tire. So we've come out with a new fender riser for the Africa Twin. I'm going to kind of take you through the process of how to assemble it, and then kind of show you the difference between before and after. So one of the things that I learned while we were out on some of the international motorcycle shows was some guys came to the booth and talked about how disappointed they were. Loved the bike, but they were disappointed when they were out doing a backcountry ride, and it had rained, and in the area they were riding in, the mud was sticking to the tire. And so I know I've seen a couple of things going around some of the forums out there on this subject, and interestingly enough, on the Africa Twin, when you kind of look at the front fender, the way it's laid out, you know, there's like 1.5 inches of space, or a little under, 1 3/8 we'll call it, in the front of the fender. But interestingly enough, when you go to the back of the fender, there's not even almost 1/2 inch of space at the back. So what's happening is as the tire is loading up with mud, it's pulling it up inside of here, and it's collecting because there's no space under there, which is kind of, you know, unfortunate for an adventure bike to have a fender that's so tight on the back. So we went back to the shop and started looking it over, and we figured, you know, we make risers for handlebars, why not make a riser for a fender? So what I'm going to take you through the process is kind of show you the ins and outs of assembling that kit that's going to be available through us. And we're going to pull out our handy dandy parts truck. We're going to show you the tools that you need. 10mm wrench, you need a 6mm and a 5mm Allen wrench, and then part of the kit's going to be a little gas line clamp as well. So alright, the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to take the Allen bolts out of the retainer, or the plastic cover that kind of retains the hoses, and then we're also going to take off the clip that's also holding the hydraulic lines in place, and we're going to do that by using a 6mm wrench, Allen wrench, and taking those out. So I'm just going to go around back, do the back one as well. Okay, save those, you're going to need them for later. So we're just going to put them in our little handy dandy parts truck. And these will come off by snapping them loose. They'll kind of, there's a couple of clips on there, that retainers that bite in underneath. So you'll kind of have to snap them off if they don't go. Be gentle with them. Okay, again, there's the opposite side. Next thing we're going to do is take our 10mm, and we're going to take off the retainer. So we're going to open this up a bit. I'm going to pull out the brake line, snap this out of here, the other one, and I'm just going to set this aside. We're not going to use, we are going to use the bolt again, but we're going to use a different mounting technique. So now the back of the fender is free. I'm going to go back and take off the rest of the bolts. Great. Okay, so we're just going to pull this out of here. Now you'll notice that there's another rubber retainer right here. You'll need to kind of pull that loose. And the fender comes free. Okay, so we are going to reuse our hardware. I would recommend too, when you're reassembling everything, that you use blue Loctite to keep everything in place. Don't use red. Red's permanent. Blue is what you want to do. Okay, so part of our fender riser assembly requires these 4 custom parts that we've got. These are made out of 6061 billet aluminum. These are machine finished, but the ones that you will get in your packages will be anodized black to match kind of everything else going on up here. There is a left and a right as well of each part. I would like you to notice that one side of the Fender riser has a countersink. The other one has a square bottom countersink. The square bottom is meant to go as kind of locators on the existing mounting setup. Also, you're going to want the taper forward, because the Fender has a molded in form that we want to have clearance for. Also, on the smaller bracket, there's also a countersink, a tapered countersink, and a square bottom. This is designed again to fit right on the rear mounting location, and it goes vertical on that 1 inch. Another part of this process is we're going to be removing these rubber retainer mounts. They are split in the bottom, so if you go around the back, you can work them out, and I've already done this on these, and break them loose. You can kind of see how they're split on the bottom, like so. You can pull those off, and we are not going to be using those for later. Here's another area that you need to be really careful of, because you do not want to kink this line. So what we do, because we would like to have you move this retainer to a new spot, and what I do is you can use simple green, or you can use like a penetrant, and you squirt a little of that penetrant on there like so, and then just let it sit for a little bit, because it'll work its way in there. There's it's kind of glue underneath there, or it's when they put it on there, it has some sort of sticky stuff on there. But when you're pulling on this stuff, don't hold below it and push toward your hand. Hold below and push away from your hand, because that way you'll keep yourself from kinking that line. Just once that stuff gets underneath there, you can move that. You can see it's moving right now. So be careful of that. Don't kink the line. Always pull away from your hand. And I'm going to move it until I kind of line up with the bare spot in the line going back up to the triple clamps. Alright, so we're going to put this all back together now using the Fender risers. We're going to use the provided tapered Allen screws. So we're going to put this on, countersink back so it kind of self-locates on there. Going to probably put some blue Loctite on your screws, and these are going to take a 5mm Allen wrench once we get there. Again, this one also, a little tip is, if you look at this one, a little bump, taper countersink out, a little bump towards the back. That is your left side. Again, 5mm Allen wrench. Okay, then put, 15-20 pounds of torque on there. Okay, then we're going to repeat the process on the other side. Alright, so now that we've got both sides assembled, we're going to put the fender back in place, sliding the fender kind of right underneath. And then we're going to take go back to our parts truck and get out the original bolts that we came from Honda. And you're going to mount your fender back in place in the new location. Go around the other side here real quick. Alright, now we've got the fender mounted in place, fastened with the 4 bolts, kind of the main bolts that hold it in place. Now we're going to put the wire retainers on and the little plastic covers that go on both sides, and that looks like this right here. If for some reason when you're working on this little bushing / collar falls out and you're not sure how it goes back in, it actually goes in so that the shoulder is out on this inner portion. So slide it in like that, right there. Now that we've got our fender in place with our kind of our main bolts, we're going to move to the back of the fender, and we need to get the hoses kind of in their proper locations. You'll notice that this rubber grommet that we moved up 1 inch earlier does fit into a retainer location. Make sure that gets clipped back in there again, like so. You gotta make sure you got slack in the bottom. It should not be tight. If it's tight, you're gonna pinch it off right in here, and we don't want that to happen. So move that up a little farther. Now we're going to put the cover over the top, remembering that there are locations here where the hoses have to go through. You don't want to pinch those hoses off, so pay attention to that. Last thing you want to do is pinch this little guy off. But now we're going to slide the retainer over. There are 1, 2, 3, actually 4, 5, 6 little snap-ins. The way I found that it works best is making sure that all the lines are going through the pre-cut locations. What I found is that this little guy in the corner here needs to go in first, so we'll kind of sneak that in there, kind of put that up over the top, making sure that we're getting things lined up here, like so, like that. So now we're on. So we're going to put that bolt back in. Like so. And put a little bit snug on it. All my hoses are going through their locations. Now we're going to kind of move on to the location of these hoses. We're going to actually use one of the original grommets that we took off earlier, and we're going to use a 1/4 inch gas line retainer and the original bolt. So what I am doing is I'm sliding the retainer over from the top and getting it into location, closing that down, get the bolt in there. We're not going to snug that up all the way. I'm going to put this grommet on there as well, on the back side of the gas line retainer. I'm going to put it so that the flat side is out. I'm going to squeeze it up tight on there. Now I'm going to finish tightening the bolt. Okay, I'm just going to snug it up. I'm not going to monkey wrench it, or I should say gorilla. Go gorilla on it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the zip ties to snug all this up together. I'm going to pull that line up a little bit in the retainer there, take some slack out of it. I'm going to grab a zip tie, slide that underneath, and making sure that I'm going to zip tie over the top of this grommet as well, because I don't want to pinch the line. And we're going to kind of pull this all up tight on top, because I don't want this rubber hose interacting with this little tang right here. Again, don't go gorilla on it. Just nice and snug, like so. And take and cut this off, like that. Still got lots of play up here. Okay, so we've got it all in place. Making sure we went back, double checked. We've got all of our fasteners tightened. We've got our hoses all in place, going through the stock locations, so to speak. The Rox riser kit is all tightened up, making sure that our hoses are not pinched, and looks pretty good. We've gained probably over an inch because we've tipped the fender forward. So I believe if I took a tape measure, this is about 1.25 inches to 1 5/16 of space now, considering before it was like ½ inch, I think is what we said. And yeah, looks pretty good. So if you're interested in the kit, give us a call at 218-326-1794, or you can go to our website, www.roxspeedfx.com. God bless and good riding.